A video posted on TikTok, and then the person dancing in it is accused of killing two people. I'll tell you what Alina Abad is accused of doing to two family members. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. There is a family in Spring Valley, New York, that is grieving. They've lost two family members, and police say another family member is responsible for the murders. Before I get into this case, I'll tell you right off the bat. The person facing first-degree murder charges is identified by police as Alan Abad, but on TikTok, Alan identifies as Alina Abad, so it appears she is transgender. Abad's legal name is Alan, so both names are used in the arrest documents. This case is out of Rockland County, New York, about 30 miles north of Manhattan. The population is more than 330,000. The apartment complex where the murders happened is in Spring Valley, a small village in the county. The murder investigation started on Saturday, February 15th in the evening hours. Monzy Scoop posted video showing first responders entering an apartment building on Gessner Drive. What the first responders found inside that building was concerning, to say the least. A press release from Spring Valley Police states when officers arrived, they discovered two female victims inside, both with significant head injuries. Now, one of the victims was dead. Another later died at the hospital. It would take less than 24 hours, and police took Alina Abad into custody. A complaint states, the defendant, Alan Abad, aka Alina Abad, being over the age of 18, did knowingly, with the intent to cause death and prevent the victim, Evelyn Aguilar Augustine, from calling the police, did strike the victim about the head and body numerous times, causing her death. Deponent further states that during said same criminal transaction, the defendant, with intent to cause serious physical injury or death to an additional person who is not a participant in the criminal transaction, and to further prevent the second victim, Annabelle Aguilar, from calling the police, did strike the victim about the head and body numerous times, causing the victim's death. So Alina Abad is accused of killing both women by hitting them in the head several times. She appears to have a black eye in both booking photos. So did the victims try to fight back? That's not clear, but it seems like it's possible. What we do know, Abad posted a TikTok eating pizza with the caption, "I love my auntie." That auntie is one of the women she is accused of murdering. And before that, there are TikTok videos posted that show Abad dancing in the snow. Were these taken and posted before Abad is accused of killing her aunts? That seems likely. Loved ones of Evelyn Aguilar Augustine and Annabelle Aguilar have set up a GoFundMe account to pay for their funerals. So far, that GoFundMe has raised more than $11,000. A message on the page states, on February 15th, we unfortunately lost two beautiful angels in a horrible, violent tragedy that should have never occurred. Due to the unexpected losses of both these women, our family is torn and is working to pick up the pieces. We aim to raise money for funeral costs for our loved ones that passed too soon. I want to tell you about an app I've tried. It's called Upside, and it's a free app that will give you actual cash back on things that you use each day, like gas, groceries, and takeout. Upside will give you real money that you can transfer right from the app straight into your bank account. When I pump gas or go to Dunkin' Donuts for a drink, I use Upside. I've even used it when grabbing an ice cream cone. Download the app, claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside, pay as usual using a debit or credit card, and follow the steps and get paid. To find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan the QR code that's on your screen and use our promo code CRIMEFIX to get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. That's promo code CRIMEFIX for an extra 25 cents back on your first gallon of gas. So I want to bring in David Sarney. He is a retired NYPD detective. He's also a professor at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice. So talk to me a little bit, David, about your first thoughts on this case. I mean, we have a 19-year-old who is accused of murdering two family members who, one, he's saying these are his aunts on TikTok, or at least one of the women is.
Yeah, I saw that, and I saw the TikTok. Another tragic case you're dealing with. We don't know why. You go visit them. You don't live in the neighborhood. You don't live in the city where they are. You go visit them. Apparently, based on the TikTok videos, Alina is having a good time. I love my auntie. She's dancing up there. The next thing you know, police getting a wellness check and finding her aunts with their heads bashed in, and she's nowhere to be found. So it didn't take long for investigators to pursue this, the leads on this. A question comes down to play is who made the phone call to for the wellness check, and that's the question that'll come up later on, I guess. And seeing this situation happen, and another young individual who's involved in violent acts, and this is something that is becoming very concerning. We see the crime stats, even though crime stats in New York City are getting lower, we're seeing violence among teenagers rising, and that's something that is a really tragic aspect to this. If she loved her aunt so much, what caused both of them to be murdered in the way they were? Seems very violent to what happened to both of them.
Yeah, incredibly violent. I mean, it's just, and this is a double homicide case. And, in looking at the complaint that was filed in this case, it talks about head injuries and preventing both of these women from calling for help. And that's one of the really concerning parts of this. Of course, somebody who's looking to carry out a homicide is going to try to evade detection and prevent those who they're attacking from calling for help. But this just paints a really, really disturbing picture of what possibly went on in that apartment, as far as Alina Abad being accused of attacking both of these women. I'm assuming they think it was one at a time.
That's what it appears to be, and I don't know, because Alina apparently is a larger before for the 5'8", about 215, so not small. I know that there was an injury that showed up on the mugshot. Not sure where that came from. That'll get hammered out. Maybe there was a situational altercation in the house where Alina, and these are all speculation, that she blew up in a sense and started attacking one, where the other tried to make the phone call and then going after them. I mean, this is the one thing I'm concerned about. This is again, you're seeing these younger people with this rage, this out and out rage. I mean, if they're such loved aunties that you're sitting and eating pizza at their house and you're visiting them, what triggered the severity of the assault against them? And not only just one, you killed both of them. And this is again speculation, allegations, but there are two dead women there in a house from a person allegedly that loved them. So I don't know what triggered it. I think that'll come up as the investigation goes forward. I don't know if they've spoken to or interrogated Alina at this time, but they had enough to make the arrest. So that's a positive, where you have a clearance on this, but the investigation is still ongoing.
Yeah, and there was a lot of talk when the police department, the Spring Valley Police Department, I'm assuming, this is a village police department. I'm assuming they don't get a lot of homicides. I mean, and they thanked a lot of other agencies. They talked about a computer crimes division. So I'm wondering if they tracked Alina down somehow using maybe cell phone technology, something like that. Obviously, I think the TikTok account could come into play somewhere in this investigation. It may place Alina at that apartment at a certain time. So, I'm sure that Spring Valley called upon other agencies to assist them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Anytime, especially in an area like Spring Valley, it is not a crime capital. It's rare that things happen up there like that. And all things are going to be put to bear on this. And that's the benefit. And that's why, again, detectives do these things in the best way they can. They do it methodically. It's organized. It's planned. And they take it step by step. So, you're dealing with now the follow-up about the TikTok videos, which maybe they did geolocation with the cell phone. They probably interviewed people in the house nearby who said, she was known to the family. I mean, they're her aunt, so she's been up there probably before. So they probably got a lead that way, and they just worked, and they worked to at least apprehend her. Now, the continuing the case, it's ongoing. Homicides don't end, or at least investigations don't end at the arrest. There's always going to be a follow-up. And you have a lot of that coming into play. And this comes down to what every detective does. You want to make sure that you got the right person, and the evidence that you have supports that case, and the person that you have is going to prosecute the full extent of the law beyond a reasonable doubt based on the evidence that you put into play.
Yeah, and this arrest was made fairly quickly, within 24 hours of the women being murdered. So, I'm thinking a family member, somebody had to have made this phone call saying, "Hey, I need you to go check, on my family
Yep.
members," or that's my inclination, or that's how I'm looking at this, because there had to have been a concern and possibly somebody pointing to Alina.
Right. Yeah, and that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna do a cell phone record. You're gonna do cell phone records checks. You're gonna check on the house to see what phone calls were made, if they were made anything during that time. Maybe to a family member. Maybe they were trying to reach out and you know talk to her. Whatever domestic incident or domestic uh, incident occurred then. Um, it's just beyond the pale that you're able to do this. I mean, she struck and allegedly struck and killed two people seriously over the head. One trying to make a phone call, so that's going to come into play. And I think maybe that's the reason why they did a wellness check. They might have called 911, and it went dead. We don't know, and I think that's why the detectives who are going to do this case, you have an interior crime scene that's going to be worked on. The exterior, you're going to see, did they recover the weapon used in this case, or the item or the object used in this case, and that's what you're going to do, and that's the whole thing. They're putting everything together, dotting the i's, t's, and crossing the t's.
I want to go back to the shiner, in the mugshot. There's no, you can't see any evidence of that in the TikTok videos. I've looked. So it does seem to me possibly that maybe there was some type of effort on the part of the women. Maybe the police know this, maybe they don't. Alina Abad is innocent until proven guilty, of course, but maybe there was an effort on the part of these women to defend themselves and try to fight, because that looks like quite the black eye there.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. When you have two people in a house, you're dealing with the strength of one individual against two, and there's probably during that it might have got an altercation which got really violent, and then you're looking at one person being struck, the other person going to the phone, and while that person is being struck and maybe knocked unconscious, attacking the second. So you'll see this, and I guarantee the crime scene photos will show the chronological order in which it's occurred to the most part. You'll see where the injuries took place, where the person was struck as opposed to where the phone is. These things are all going to come into play. But this is, that's the thing. I think, did she receive that during whatever fight or dispute was going on that created the situation where she allegedly, bashed? They just clearly stated bashed their brains.
Yeah, it's just an awful,
Yeah.
awful case. They made the arrest pretty quickly. Alina Abad apparently lived in New Jersey, so she was arrested over in New Jersey, I guess, brought over to New York. So, I mean, the process is going to move forward. The police really aren't releasing a lot of information at this point in time about the crime, other than what we saw in the complaint. So, do you think we'll learn, as the months go on, a little bit more about possibly what went on here?
Yeah, I think this is the thing about these investigations. Again, they have the arrest. They want to keep everything close to the chest, and I have no problem with police agencies doing this. They don't want to release everything because there's speculation. Media gets on this. Again, you're dealing with an individual, and could there be some salaciousness in the story based on the fact that it's named Adam but known as Alina. That could be one issue, but it's not necessarily what I'm concerned as a detective or an investigator. My concern is, we have a crime that took place. We have an individual in custody that we believe is the one that did it. What's the evidence that supports that fact? What are the evidence supports those facts? And that's what you're looking at. And that's the thing. It's going to take some time, and that's why departments don't want to tell everybody everything, because then you create a lot more fervor. You lose information. They have some things they're looking at. We try to keep out those, internet sleuths in a sense, where they'll look for this, they'll look for that, and they kind of muddy the waters. And then social media gets involved. What detectives want to do, they want to get the case in the best solid position they can. And sometimes withholding information to the point where, they already said, this person who's been arrested is not a threat to anyone else. That was beneficial for that part of it. But everything else, you let them do their job. Let them get all the evidence, and that'll come out at the end. When this case is finalized, you'll hear probably more, or during the trial, if there is a trial.
Yeah. Well, it's a horrible case, and the
Yeah.
poor family grieving the loss of two women. Thank you so much, Dave Sarney. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you very much. You stay safe now.
I want to turn now to Jonna Spilbor. She is a criminal defense attorney in New York. Jonna, this case it has some really disturbing allegations. So, just your first reaction to Alina Abad, whose legal name is still Alan Abad, being charged with murdering these two women who sounds like were both his aunts.
Yeah, this case is disturbing, Anjanette, on a number of levels. And if you just analyze it by reading about it, I don't think you get the full breadth of exactly what was going on here. I had the, I guess, misfortune of going through the defendant's TikTok, and you can clearly see there's something going on that's not quite right between the ears of this defendant. And in one of the videos, you actually see, I'm going to call him, with one of the alleged victims, like eating pizza, having, somewhat of a normal, just, teenage TikTok interaction. And then this happens. So it begs the question, 19-year-olds, healthy 19-year-olds are not supposed to kill anybody, let alone their family. And they particularly don't do it when moments before, or relatively soon before, they're just kind of having a normal day. So you'd have to examine what was going on inside the mind of this particular defendant. In fact, was this particular defendant legally insane or something a little short of insane? But you can't analyze this case or represent this person without getting some sort of psychological evaluation done, because this just ain't right.
Yeah, and there's still so much that we don't know about the case and what was going on leading up to this. All we have is a snapshot in time in the form of that TikTok video, hanging out, eating pizza in what appears to be, the apartment or a bedroom or something, just having a fun time saying, "I love my auntie." Um, you know, Alina Abad, identifies as female. I don't know if that's going to come into play somehow in this case. Was there some tension about that in the family? Sometimes that can create some tension in the family, with coming out, or the whole issue of how somebody identifies. But it didn't look like there was anything really bad going on at all in that TikTok video. So if this case lands on your desk, Jonna Spilbor, as a criminal defense attorney, you've already mentioned possible psychological evaluation. Where do you go from here? Because we're so early on in this process, and they really made quick work of making an arrest in this case.
Yeah, so obviously this defendant must have left some pretty big clues, because you're right, they did not take long in making this arrest. But of course you have to begin with the psychological evaluation, because I'm going to say this, and this may not make me many friends, but obviously this person is transgender, and oftentimes we're not doing the transgender community any favors if we ignore the fact that there is a psychological component to it that can sometimes be unhealthy. For example, transgender or gender dysphoria is in the DSM-5, right? It is listed as a disorder. And what the powers that be did fairly recently is they used to call it gender identity disorder, and then they tried to soften the name by calling it gender dysphoria. Now, you can't just give something, a Disneyland type name and make it better. There is a real psychological component to it. And if those psychological components are not dealt with properly by the proper psychological and medical professionals, who knows where it leads? Is this an example? Is this case an example of an extreme place where something like that, if not handled properly by professionals, can lead? That is something that I would want to explore with the help of my experts if this case landed on my desk.
It sounds like a really horrific crime too. I mean, it talks about in the complaint, these women having their heads essentially beaten in. I mean, pretty horrific head injuries. And the allegation is that they were prevented from calling police. So it sounds like, and I'm seeing a big shiner in the mugshot too. So that leads me to believe there may have been some sort of effort on the part of the women, or at least one of them, to fight back. So there was an effort to allegedly keep these women, to hurt them, and then keep them from calling police. And it looks like there was a struggle.
And all good points. What we also don't know, because this is really new, was there any sort of history? That's another thing that's important to me as analyzing this case. And if I were representing this person, did it happen in a vacuum all of a sudden? Was there a history of some sort of domestic violence, and how long did that date back? Is there any family court struggle that we can look to see if this was brewing, for example, and that it got ignored? These are all going to be important components in defending this person, because look, we're talking about a 19-year-old, I'm going to say kid, even though legal adult, 19-year-old kid, who's looking at the rest of his life, and excuse me if I'm offending anybody by calling him in prison, who, when you look at the TikTok history, you have a teenager who's always seems to be out on a street in public doing some kind of weird dance, juxtaposed next to eating a piece of pizza next to an aunt that he allegedly murdered by bludgeoning her in the head. Like, there's just so much going on underpinning this person's behavior that you can't ignore it. You absolutely can't. Like, this wasn't a drug deal gone bad. This wasn't Auntie got in the way of a drug deal. This wasn't, Auntie did something that provoked this. At least we don't think so. So there's just so much psychological mess that's going to have to be waded through in this case. And we don't know. We just don't know yet how deep that's going to go.
Yeah, we really don't. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But we just know that this family, the family of these two women, are grieving, and they are heartbroken. It's a tragedy. Janice Wilbur, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Anjanette. Good to see you.
You too. And right now, that case against Alina Abad is going to be presented to a grand jury in Rockland County, so more charges are possible. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.